From the role-playing games idea was these interactive books. They were never published in Russia, but so I am looking for a Russian publisher. Is anybody out there? It'd be great. These books have sold 16 million copies worldwide in 28 languages now, most recently in China. These were interactive books. They weren't a passive book where it's continuous dialogue. At the end of each paragraph, the reader had to make a choice. So these are the first branching narrative books where the reader was effectively controlling the action. So pre-technology, this was one of the very first instances of interactive entertainment, albeit in a book form. And these grabbed the attention of the school children in the 1980s and gave them a sort of taste for interactive entertainment, determining their own destiny. They were the central character. It was all about them. And I think that's been taken through in today's world of games and interactive entertainment in general, where people feel a lot more empowered when they're controlling the action rather than just watching a linear experience through a movie or film or TV. I got into the video games industry in the 1980s. Small British developer publisher called Domark. They were looking for a launch product, and I wrote their first game, Eureka, which was a game on the very simple early computers, the Commodore 64 and the ZX Spectrum. And when I sold out of Games Workshop in 1991, I joined the Domark board, became an executive, and Domark in turn became Eidos when we put 4 companies together, floated on the London Stock Exchange and created Newco Eidos. And with Eidos, of course, came the lovely... Who's heard of Tomb Raider Lara Croft in this audience? Yes, good, me too. So, and in turn, Lara Croft and Eidos, we were bought a couple of years ago by Square Enix of Japan. Square Enix, well known for their game Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest. And the good thing about Square Enix is that they didn't take the IP that we had and back to Tokyo to create Japanese-facing content. They recognized the value of our IP, the value of our creatives, the value of our studios to make content which served a global industry. So Square Enix are now effectively a global publisher with their own branded goods, primarily for the Japanese market and some worldwide markets. Got the Eidos content, original IP, as I said, we determine our own destiny, so Tomb Raider, Hitman, Deus Ex, Thief, Just Cause, these were all intellectual properties that belonged to Eidos and therefore had its intrinsic value. And Square Enix also owned Taito from Space Invaders. So, a brief history of video games, why it's grown to where it is today and where it came from. We really started off in the 1960s. This was a game designed in a laboratory. It was just 2 spaceships with limited fuel and power, but this was never commercialized. It wasn't until the 70s with a company called Atari with Nolan Bushnell created this very simple game, yet it had very compelling replay value. It was very simple to play. All you need to know was 6 words: avoid missing ball for high score, and you could start playing. And this was really the birth of the commercial world of video games. And games came in the home in the 1970s in the USA. The Magnavox Odyssey was the first console in the homes. It wasn't a huge success because they implied that you needed to have a Magnavox TV for this set-top box to work. It was not true, and therefore they kind of shot themselves in the foot. And it was the Atari again in the late 70s, the 2600, that really made games very, very popular in the homes in the USA. These were interchangeable cartridges, so you could take one cartridge out, put another one in, and everyone was playing games together, socially, in the living rooms. The Japanese came on board in the late 70s with the arcade machines, games like Space Invaders, Asteroids, massive popularity. Everyone was obsessed with playing games in the arcades in the late 70s and early 80s. And I'll just take you a little bit down memory lane. Here's some of the very early games from across the world.
した。
So you can move to see the evolution of games from simple pixelated experiences to side-scrolling 2D experiences to full immersive 3D experiences. But even that seems quite ancient today by today's standards. So in the UK, in the USA, in Japan, games in the home became really big in the mid-90s with the introduction of the Sony PlayStation. Of course, it's software that drives hardware sales, and Tomb Raider is one of the drivers of the PlayStation format. But today there are many formats that are games-capable machines. From handheld devices like the DS, and of course everyone's carrying a mobile device, either an iPhone or an Android smartphone, which are all games-enabled, connecting to the internet, playing socially together across the world. So, games industry is bigger than DVDs, bigger than cinema box office, bigger than music, bigger than books. It's the largest entertainment industry in the world. And you get some huge numbers. You can get 10 million units of a game being sold, 10 million subscribers to massively multiplayer online games, 250 million people plus playing games on Facebook. You know, we spend $50 billion a year now on game software. Why is that? Well, we can generate emotions out of people. We can make them happy, we can make them sad, we can make them wonder what's going to happen next. We can generate emotions from them. And it's anticipated by 2015 that the global market for software games will be $90 billion a year. Now, this is a huge opportunity. With so much uncertainty in the world, and in traditional manufacturing, and in financial services, the opportunities in the creative industries, and the games industry in particular, are absolutely monumental. Yet we default this sort of the cultural issues that have surrounded games have always been something we had to fight against. When people see children reading books, they think they're doing a great thing. You put a controller in their hands, you always think they're doing something terrible. When in fact, when you play a game, you're actually learning about problem solving, puzzle solving, choice of consequence, intuitive learning. There are so many positive things you can do with games. Games-based learning, service, instructions, these are great things. So we must get away from this sort of shock horror image of games and be more positive about games. Because there's so much more content diversity now. Content for young, content for old, males and females, whether it's nurturing